Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, we're going to do another walking video outside. I usually do a supporter stream tonight. I'm a little bit worried about bandwidth of running the stream and Jitsi at the same time. So I figured we'd go ahead and talk a little bit about privacy and operating systems and other accounts, because if you're looking at privacy, and I'm not talking to people who are not necessarily looking for privacy. Some people think I have nothing to hide. Well, you do. You're not there yet. Maybe you could listen along and get a few things, few tips, think about a couple of things. But I'm speaking to those people who would like to use privacy, who are trying to use Linux as a means to capture some privacy in your life. So let's first and foremost start with this. Microsoft and Apple. Your two big companies which are running the two other bigger operating systems. They all have connectivity options where you can go in there and you can sync your files to their servers. They have ad tracking built into the operating systems themselves. They have back-end connections into their cloud accounts. They do a lot of things which collect data. Now, Apple generally doesn't share a lot of that data in any form. Microsoft, working with its open data protocol, thinks that sharing a bunch of data that they declare to be anonymized is a positive thing. That's helpful for everybody. And you may not want to be part of that. The problem is in the modern Windows operating systems, 10 and 11, you simply cannot turn off a lot of that data. And that's problematic. And so some of us are like, I don't want that. I don't want my operating system sending any form of data back. I don't care how little it is. I don't care if it's like, oh, well, it's just getting your system resources. That's no big deal. Who cares? I'm talking to you, Ubuntu. So yes, not all Linux operating systems are also privacy focused. But the point is that I might say I don't want any data going out in any form. I don't care if it's anonymized. It's my operating system, and I do not want any back-end connections to any clouds. I don't want it to do automatic data or error reporting. I don't want any of that crap. I just want my operating system to turn on and to run programs. Now, of course, we need to talk about those programs. Some of your programs collect data. They want to collect data. They want to pass on the data. So you have to be careful about that. Microsoft Office is a huge office suite that tries to collect data. They try and collect the same type of data that the Windows operating system does. And that can be a variety of different places. So this is why you look for alternatives. I prefer LibreOffice. Other people prefer only Office. There are a lot of Office suites out there that can replace Microsoft Office. Unfortunately, some of the software is now moving in those directions. So Audacity, for example, they're moving into a method where they're starting to want to collect some data now as well. Some Linux releases of it are going to cut all that stuff out because it's easy to do. Not all of them are. If you're using the Flatpak, you probably have the data collection in there. And so this is problematic. So we need to start looking even in the Linux world. So don't think that switching to Linux itself is the end-all, be-all for privacy in that respect. You have to look at the operating system. You have to look at the programs. And then the third principle we have to look at is the websites you are visiting. Now, some people say there is no privacy on the internet. I completely debunked this several different times. I talked about this in several different videos. I'll link a few of those here in this video here on the cards on YouTube. You can go back and look through my privacy resources to find some of those. The overall principle being that there is some safety and privacy on the internet if you're doing it right. The first thing you have to do is watch your browser, your settings. Don't be logging into your browsers. If you're on Linux, you still have the option to log into your browsers. Well, logging into your browsers means that data that you're doing is syncing. Some of them are going to use this for better purposes, some of them will not. Firefox can sync data. I trust them a little bit more than I trust Google, but not very much, being as that they're now working with Google and Facebook. Okay. Google's browser, Chrome, I would absolutely not log into that. I would absolutely not log into Edge. These are problematic things. They're going to be pushing some form of data collection and storing the data that you're doing long term that you don't have control over. Back in the old days, we had cookies. The cookies, those cookies that were on your operating system, you could delete those easily. You could select which ones to keep, which ones to delete. But now with this method where they're moving away from cookies and into just into your browser, collecting things by you being logged into the browser, you have lost all control. Sure, they might give you a delete button, but yeah, do we really trust that they're deleting your data that they profit from off of their servers because you asked them to? I'm not holding my breath on that. But the next thing beyond your browsers is your software itself. The websites itself. If you're utilizing websites that require all these logins, Facebook will be a good example of this. If you're logged into Facebook, they are tracking you across the entire internet. They see everything that you are doing. They see all of these factors, okay? And so this becomes a problematic thing where you log into Facebook and then you visit X, Y, or Z other site. Well, Facebook is keeping a record of all this stuff and utilizing this to build up your ad profile that they're going to use to target you with ads. Based on people having Facebook, not realizing they should be logging out of it, and then going around and using that data. And so this begs some serious questions. Number one, get rid of that crappy Facebook if you do not absolutely have to have it. If you need it, and I get there are people who need it for some purpose or another, if you do need that Facebook account, you want to make sure that you separate this browser out. You're only going to log in under a private tab. Maybe you have a separate browser dedicated explicitly to Facebook. And then what I would recommend is block Facebook in your hosts file so they can't track anything. And when you need Facebook, open it up and then use all those things. And then when you're done with Facebook, re-add all those items back into your host file. Way better methodology to do it. That way Facebook is incapable of tracking you around even in a logged out state because you're blocking all of their tracking domains. And there's about 20 or 30 of them. There's a lot of different tracking domains that Facebook uses. And so you need to block all of them to prevent Facebook from tracking you around the internet. And so this brings us to the summary here of this particular video. Don't just switch to Linux and say, good, now I'm good in private. There's other things you need to consider, not only your operating system, you have to consider the browsers, you have to consider the software that you're using, and you have to look at the websites that you are using when you are doing it. So in that respect, do a full audit of everything that you're using in your life and cut out all of the stuff that is problematic. So with that, guys, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see where I'm at traveling around the country, I do have a travel channel called Tux Traveler. I'll have the channel linked in the comments down below so you can follow me as I crisscross around the country in my converted van over here. There it is. So have a look over there if you want to. And anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.
Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.